Okay, evening everyone. I'm trying another one of these videos, but this is actually one I hope to use as informative for helping some people out in the future. So, as you can see here, I've got a super messy engine bay, but we've got an S50 with some S54 ITBs on it. This is used in the Rabid Racing Development Kit. I have this on my 95 M3 also. And I was actually one of the first people to get this kit installed, and I get a ton of people on Instagram, Facebook, all the fun places asking me questions of how to hook it up as more and more people are getting this kit. So I figure, why not? Let's do a little informative video on what I did to make this kit work. So, things you're gonna need. So you can't see it well behind here, but we've got the S54, the Rabid Racing adapter bracket right there. So that bolts to the head, which then the S54 ITBs bolt to that. You've also got here the Rabid Racing, here's their linkage. This is their second version. Actually, the original version is up there on my wall of shame. I was one of the first guys to do it and helped figure out that that wasn't right. So, you got your linkage and mountage arm. Here is the cable. Don't mind all of this. This is wrong. I'm going to explain that in a moment. So first off, things you got to do. So throttle position sensor. I've got it covered up, but you have to swap pins 1 and 3. S54 ITBs read 180 degrees reverse of the S50, S52, M50, M52 throttle body sensor. Same sensor, same plug. You just have to swap pins 1 and 2. Whether you want to D-pin, cut, splice, however you want to do it, you got to swap those. You're going to need to modify your alternator, because the biggest thing, the hardest thing with this swap is getting the S54 Airbox to fit. It's snug. You're also going to want to tweak your dipstick tubing to keep it out of the way. Again, this is very rough. I haven't finished cleaning this up. It's not the prettiest. It's also a track car setup, so I'm not terribly concerned with aesthetics. Because obviously you can see too here, there's no heater box. So a key thing you're gonna notice with the heater box, so normally you have a heater valve. I think I got mine sitting, yeah, it's over here. It's beat up, but so normally you got a heater valve that's sitting right here. This gets massively in the way. If you still have this, which most of you will, you actually, I found to unhook it, you kind of leave it sitting here, and it will clear the airbox. The other thing you're gonna wanna do, so this is a SMG gearbox. They're a lot cheaper than the non-SMG ones for whatever reason on eBay. You don't have to necessarily do this, but I clearance and take the, this is where the, hold on, let me get a better. So this is where normally the SMG reservoir would be. I trim that off. Rabid gives you a bunch of plugs. I plug this top hole. I don't use it. Side hole here, I use for the catch can line, which is how I delete the PCV system. It just doesn't work, so you're gonna wanna run a catch can line. Now, two options you have for the underside, because back here, this hits the starter. You can go to an S54 starter, which is smaller, or you can clearance the crud out of this seam here. You don't need it, goes away, makes it fit. Intake air temperature sensors, what I use this for, I glue it in. This, I use the idle air hookup. I prefer using the factory S54 idle air setup. You can obviously make your own of this, and some people have. I just prefer finding the factory. Cap off that guy right there. So then it sits nicely there, plugs into the bottom of the airbox. You're obviously going to need S54 ITBs, S54 air rail, S54 fuel rail. You're going to want to, this is terrible, I'm going to clean this up some more, but you want to bend this upper airline here because that's going to connect to your brake booster. You're also, there's a little nipple here on the back. You're going to use that to run to the fuel pressure regulator. This one, I cap off, didn't need it. Also, you're gonna want S54 fuel injectors. I prefer with the S54 fuel rail. You obviously don't have to use the S54 rail. You can get a nice fancy one, but I use it so I can use the factory hardline. And then underneath the car, I have a S54 fuel pressure regulator housing, which uses the S54 fuel filter. But you want to swap, at least from Castle Tuning has made it work. It works really well. You swap the actual fuel pressure regulator with an E36 one. So it's S54 fuel pressure regulator is 5.5 bar. The S52, the E36 one is 3.5. So you want to have the 3.5. So, but that makes it nice and clean. It also makes it so you only need a single hard line to go up to the top. Yeah. So then what you're gonna have to do is, the kit comes with, I screwed up and I had to redo it. So here's a new one. It's a Jegs 36-inch throttle body cable. It's way too long. You have to cut it to fit. You want to make sure you cut it right the first time. Don't do what I did where you cut it too short and you bone yourself and then you're having to redo things. Now, things you can do here. There's this really nice actuator rod that you can lengthen, shorten. You can lengthen, shorten this. There's a lot of different things you can do. So you just want to make it so that this clears. And like I said, so you can get this back out of the way. You can see the bodies are open because I've got the cable cut way too short. But you just want to make sure this flows smooth. The smoother this flows, the easier everything's going to be for you. So now I will probably come back once I got that connected. Okay, so skipped a bit. Kind of got ahead of myself, but the nice thing is when you do all this manifold, super easy to take on and off compared to M50 or M52. So you cut the throttle cable. I got the old one sitting here that I cut too short. You cut that to length, trim off the rest, get it in, linkage is nice and smooth, and then you get the airbox back on. So you can see here, again, this is rough. I'm bodging this as quick together as I can to get it tuned and get it ready for our season. But basically, you're going to run up into a catch can, into the valve cover. There's to my idle air control. There's my vacuum line for my brakes. MAF here. So this is a Z3M elbow. You could also use the Z4M. The Z4 is nice because it's got a port on it, which makes it really nice for the catch can, but they're not available right now, so this works. I have a little adapter in here to be able to fit the MAF nicely, and then you run down accordingly. This is so you can run it with a stock ECU. So Castle Performance is really well experienced with tuning this setup. They did the M3, and they've done a few other guys' cars now. It just needs to be OBD2, or actually they can do OBD1. A couple of guys have had that done. So, but that's it. Again, this was just kind of a quick overview of what I did to make this work. And it's pretty simple. The hardest part is just, finding the parts. Because this has become fairly popular, these parts aren't, the S54 parts, I should say, are not as easy to get your hands on. But I know Michiana over at Rabid, he's got a few sets in stock, and you can find them. So this is Ed, 1110s Racing, 1110s Racing on Instagram. And yeah, hit me if you got any questions, or we'll see when we do the next thing.